Welcome again to the Service Provider Podcast, where you get to hear mindful and soulful discussions surrounding guests' lived experiences, professional development, and impact of their culture and identity as they navigate daily life and things that just happen. So, I am your host, Frederick Marte, and today we are doing another bonus episode with a colleague and friend of mine, and her name is Chanel Pozo. Hi, Chanel. Hi, how are
Hi,
you?
I'm good. How are you today, Fred?
I am good. So, today, as you know, is one of those bonus episodes, so it's going to be a little less formal, and it's less about interviewing you, but it's about putting me on the hot seat and having you answer some questions about our relationship, how we met, um, and things of that matter, more specifically having to do with me as a social worker. So we could start with you just talking a little bit about how we met and what was that like?
Yeah, so we met at both of our previous employers, which was a CBO located in the Bronx. CBO is community-based organization, and I actually started my experience there as a MSW intern, and Fred had been a coordinator for the kiddos there at that time, and so we met, and our paths aligned then.
So you said our paths aligned. How so? Like what were like your first thoughts? Like what did you think when you met me, when you saw me? Because like you said, you were there first as an intern, of course, but you had like a better sense of what was going on, but also I think you were part of like the process of like
Yeah.
hiring me.
Yeah, so I know you do remember, but I remember particularly taking part in the group interview that the kiddos were having for you prior to you being onboarded, and I got to get more of like your professional side during that time. And then when you were officially with the team, I think we kind of personalized our relationship a little more.
And what would you say, like, drove you to want to have a relationship with me? Like, were there any like characteristics or traits other than being professional, being amazing? I know all those things, right? But what like made you want to connect?
I was like, "Wow, this kid, he takes no crap, right?" And, I tend to navigate life on the same tip, obviously very respectfully, and you did that graciously as well, and that definitely drew me to you. I was like, "Yeah, I wanna be his friend." It was less about the professional stuff, but I was like, "Yeah, I'm totally open to being his friend," and we were able to connect on that because we had very, how do you say, strong personalities, right? For the good reason, especially and with the population we were working with, it being teens and middle schoolers. So yeah, I was like, yeah, he's gonna be a goodie.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of what I was hinting on because I remember clearly like that at some point you said like, "Oh, I want to be your friend." Like I used to know another person named Frederick, and like when I found out your name, like I wanted to be your friend. I was like, okay. Like I think at that point in like my professional career, I really wasn't making friends at work. I think I used to like separate things a lot in terms of like, this is where I work and that's it. I'm gonna go to work and I'm gonna go home, but
Mhm.
that didn't happen because we also made another friend at, that employment, and we became kind of like, uh, not a clique, but a clique in a way. Um
Yeah. For sure, and I definitely wasn't expecting to be working there during that time. So, in terms of separating personal and work, I agreed a lot, and something that stood out to me as well, when we did begin working with each other was your ideology of, I don't do family at work, right? A lot of companies and organizations, just, places that we work at on a day to day tend to use the model of a family dynamic, and it tends to get overlooked, right, in many areas on how it can impact or be detrimental to the employees. And I think that you were very strong in that aspect. And so I was like, okay, well, he knows what he wants, right? Like he knows what he's tolerating and what he's not. And I'm like, I want this person to be in my network and in around in my circle. I ended up getting employed there, so it did become where, I was working and we began working together and things ended up unfolding then. But yeah,
All things come to an end, right?
yeah.
We're both in different locations now. Uh, but I mean, thinking about that experience, what is like a memory or something that you remember from that experience that involved like us or other people, but keeping in mind like how we are as workers?
Yeah, I think a lot of what you're hinting towards now, what comes, to mind is just the how would I say, the division amongst leadership and us, the coordinators, right? Because the other friend we ended up making was also another coordinator, basically, for different departments in the organization. And so there tended to be a divide, which brought us closer for the great reasons, but also made it more difficult to kind of get things done the way they needed to, just due to the biases and just how they saw how well we meshed together.
And I think that goes to say, to like your earlier point of me not wanting to
Right.
work as a family, it ended up happening where it ended up being that way anyways, like in terms of like our friendship and how we moved around. I remember like people would always say like, you know, like they're attached by the hip. Like they would always be together. And it was there was a point where we honestly didn't have to communicate about certain things. Like we just knew what had to be done. We just like worked so well together.
For sure. And it it was essential that we were able to do that. We had very different personalities, but we agreed and had a lot of the same values, right? And once again, with me being introduced to you on that tip, right? Of, I don't do family, it made me intrigued as to why. Like I need to know why, I want to know why, because I kind of feel the same. Like I agreed, for obvious reasons. But, with the whole setting boundaries, that was fundamental, not only within our friendships but within the work that we were doing. And so I think you setting the tone was super super um important.
And keeping in mind, so we talked about great things like we meshed well together, we had a good vibe, we were able to get things done. But also, and I don't know if you remember, and you probably do, but we had a really big fight at one point, like towards the beginning of our relationship. I don't know if you remember it or if you want to talk a little bit more about it. Not necessarily like the specifics, but like what came out of that.
um I think it was driven both by our passions within the work that we were doing. I think that we were already in too deep, right? To be able to separate this whole ideology of family and being attached by the hip. Whether we wanted to set those boundaries, our friendship had taken a different level and we still had to go into work the next day. And so, with that being the case, the work that we did was very different, but it did come together very often. And you're passionate about what you were doing. I was passionate about what I was doing. The other coordinator also passionate about what they were doing. And so having the appropriate space to be able to kind of distinguish, how can we address this rather than having a fight, right? Rather than disagreeing and it kind of blowing up. We didn't necessarily have the appropriate space to kind of figure those things out because it was either we're friends or we're at work, right? And as you once again referring back to your motto, um, it was important that we try not to mix the two or make it difficult even more than it was. And so I think have those conversations or uncomfortable conversations even that in and out of work, we would have possibly been able to handle it better.
I totally agree. Like, it's really hard. Even me, like, right, like having that model and believing that, it's really hard to be consistent with something you believe when you're in it, right? You
Mhm.
could say, I don't believe in this or I don't want to do this, but then you're
Yeah,
in it. And it's like now really you're reacting, you're doing things without thinking because you're in that space. And not to say that it was like survival mode, but in a way, that's how it is, right? You have to just get things done. Again, right? We might be friends, but we also are employees and we got to get the work done. So there was a
that's it.
lot going on. I will ask one more thing before we move to our rapid fire questions. And those are just questions about me to see if you know me. So my last question is, what do you do as a therapist to practice self-care and really, take care of yourself as you're working with different populations?
Hmm. In the field of social work, we focus so much on self-care, yet it's very easy to get very little of self-care, right? Within the work that we do, again, driven by passion, expertise, and just experience. And one thing that I found helpful with kind of checking that at the door is also pouring back into myself the same way I'm pouring into my clients, right? And the work that I'm doing. Because it's very easy to get sucked into that and kind of forget, my own identity and what my own needs are. So constantly on a journey of self-discovery, I'm very big on to be specific, right? I'm like really into life vlogs, like, content, everyday content of other people navigating their lives, which probably sounds so silly, but just because I get so little, finding different ideas to make time for me. I love doing the feel good stuff, decorating my home and just making my spaces more comfortable and inviting so that I am able to kind of unravel when necessary.
Okay, all good things, all good things. Sometimes you need to escape and like go into somebody else's reality for a change.
Right.
So moving to the rapid fire questions. So I've already answered these questions. I'm gonna see if you get the same or near the same answers that I have, and we'll go from there. So the first one is, what's my favorite way to relax?
Is this a personal question or a professional question?
There's
You
only
like
one
travel.
answer.
You're big on traveling. Is
Ding,
that
ding, ding. That's correct. Yes, it's travel. So what cause I care about a lot?
Ooh, you're very into theater. Very into theater and, um, you're so much. You have so many hats spread. Like, I know you're into working with kiddos, you're into theater, combining, like, social services and social justice within theater and drama. You're very creative.
Yes. So I will say yes. My answer is combining things. And I said that because I like to mash things together. So I put combining things as a cause because I am already involved in so many causes that I find ways to like intersect them.
Mhm.
My next question is, what is my go-to karaoke song?
Oof, I should know this, but unfortunately I don't. I should know this. I'm a victim of many countless attempted karaoke nights. But I can't answer that, buddy. You gotta tell me.
What do you think?
If I can guess, what's your favorite karaoke song? Oh my gosh, I have like a core memory, but I can't come up with the name. I'm so bad at that.
You forfeit.
Yeah, forfeit. I plead the
So
fifth.
my karaoke go-to is Man in the Mirror by Michael Jackson. And
Oh,
you should know because that's the song I wanted to sing at the karaoke event when we were together. I did end up singing karaoke. It wasn't that song, and I ended up winning. So kudos to me. The next question is, what kind of social worker am I? What do I do for work? And this is a list. There's multiple things.
I know that you currently are doing you're in policy, you're in direct practice, so you're working individually with clients and their families. Again, you're into theater, and so I know you have your foot in that. And you're also a PhD student right now. So like I said, referencing back to you wearing many, many hats.
Okay, so you got it. You mentioned all the areas. And then the last question is, what is my favorite thing to eat?
I know we were Chipotle buddies, you know,
That's not what I wrote, but I will.
but
I'll give it to you because yes, we were Chipotle buddies. But my answer is sancocho. Anything soup related.
gotcha. Okay.
Oh,
So sancocho in 90-degree weather is a goal for you.
and any kind of weather.
Gotcha.
I will eat it
Okay.
anytime. I could eat it right now in the summer. It doesn't matter. So thank you, Chanel, for coming on today and just sharing a little bit more about who I am with this public and indulging me in the rapid fire questions. I know you weren't prepared for that, but I thought it was like a fun way to get us kind of talking about different things that, the people listening might be interested or might want to know about me.
Thank you for having me. It was fun answering these questions. I'm glad that I'm able to kind of show how much of the asset you are. And yeah, I'm excited to hear what you got going on with this podcast. Hopefully, this was a good one.
Well, thank you so much, Chanel. I appreciate you coming on. I know you are extremely busy as well. She actually joined me today coming straight from work, so I really appreciate her finding the time. Thank you again for listening, and I will see you next time. Thank you for listening to the Service Provider Podcast. I am your host, Frederick Marte, and I just want to say, have a great day. Please, please, please follow me on Instagram to connect at Frederick Talks. And you can listen to the podcast on Spotify as well as Apple Podcasts.